How are y'all?
Good. How about you?
Good. Doing well. Thanks.
We were just saying we want to make sure you know this isn't like an expose situation. We just want to get a personal message to our viewers.
This is like my favorite group to talk to. I'll do this interview any day of the week.
That's so sweet. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. We can just jump into the questions.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So how are you preparing for students being on campus this fall?
So that is a great question, Caroline. So this is a different kind of school year, right? Because we're not used to the whole online piece. So it's almost like our principals and our teachers, you're sort of running two campuses in one, because you're running a virtual campus and you're running a in-person campus. And at most of our campuses, district-wide, although Stratford is slightly higher on the in-person side, it's about 50-50. It's been interesting. So our families are, about half of them are choosing in-person and half of them are choosing online. At Stratford, it's slightly higher towards the in-person side. So one of the things that we're doing is we've been really preparing in terms of like teacher professional development. You guys remember the spring, yeah. We just kind of, Ava, we talked about that. The teachers did such an amazing job, but we kind of threw them into that whole online piece. None of us were really prepared. Kids did a great job. Families did a great job, but we've really worked all summer to train teachers, make sure that we have schedules. And I hope you guys are seeing that when you take your classes, it looks different than it looked in the spring. There's accountability. You have to be there. You have to turn your stuff in. So that's one piece of it. But I would say the other side of it that's equally as important is the health and safety side. So we've worked really close with our partners at Memorial Hermann to help us develop our health and safety protocols. And so we have a quite lengthy document about all the things we're doing, both on the kids side, the family side, and the teacher side, to make sure that we're doing all of the things we need to do to keep kids safe and to keep teachers and staff safe. And then ultimately to keep families safe when the kids go home.
Okay. What do you think the most important or significant thing is to keeping the students who have elected for in-person learning on campus this fall?
I think kids who opt for in-person learning, are comfortable coming back to campus. Obviously, I think you probably have some anxiety there just because it's going to look different. Again, you're not going to have maybe I don't want to say all the freedoms, but there's going to be a lot of stipulations in place for safety protocols. So I really think for kids, I always feel like people don't give our kids enough credit, especially kids y'all's age. You guys know what's going on, right? Like we're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. We're going to have to be careful. I feel like we've created a very safe situation, but I think part of keeping kids in person is helping them to feel like the decision that they made was the right one for them. And I think a lot of that's going to revolve around all three of those things I talked about. So academically, you're socially and emotionally, so the mental health aspect of it, the connectedness into school, and the health and safety. I think we have to make sure we hit a home run in all three of those areas for kids to stay at the campus.
How are you planning to make the students learning online feel included with the students in the classroom?
So the good news is that they'll have access to all the same services. So the counselors are still the same. We have access to communities and schools for kids who have additional needs that the counselors may or may not be able to accommodate for. And I think the really great thing is that they can still participate in extracurricular activities. And then some of the classes will be what I would say they're like a hybrid, not all of them, but some of your singleton classes, like journalism may be one of those classes. I don't know what all they are at Stratford. Some of your foreign language classes where you don't have very many sections and you have kids that want to take the class, but some are online and some are distance. Those kids will actually be taking the class at the same time. So what you'll have is you'll have kids in the classroom and then other kids that are zooming into the classroom. And then with It's Learning and the online platforms, kids can still do projects together. Like our goal is going to be able to keep those kids as tied together as we can. Obviously, there's some division there because you've got a group that's at the campus and a group that's at home, but all of those services and everything will still be available. So we're going to do the best we can to make sure people stay tied in. Because that's a real important piece of that emotional well-being for kids that we have to make sure we're mindful of. The silver lining in a lot of this whole situation has been that we have figured out how to do things differently that we would have never, ever, ever ventured to figure out before. So I think we have to look at it that way. And I mean, I think that, it won't be the same kind of school spirit that you guys are used to, but maybe we create something else out of it. But again, this will, in time, there will be a vaccine, and we'll look back on this and it'll be just something we weathered together. But until then, I think we just have to look at new, different ways to do business.
And I know something that Ms. Wolf has always emphasized to us in your book and broadcast, at least, is that the students learning in person are as much as a priority as the students learning virtually, and vice versa. So going back to the September 8th plan, how did you come up with that idea? And do you see any world where we would do that longer than the week of September 8th through the 11th?
So, when we were talking with our principals, the question is, how can we help our teachers to feel more comfortable, and how can we give them reassurance that we have done everything humanly possible to create a health and safety plan that is going to protect them and protect the kids. And so, one of the things when we were thinking about how that could happen, the principals just mentioned of the high schools and the middle schools. Our elementary schools are not huge. Most of our elementary schools are relatively small or medium sized. But I think the principals felt like you have high school kids who are accustomed to doing things a certain way, and you have teachers who are going to be trying to implement all these new safety protocols. And you've got, we don't have a comprehensive high school under 2,000 kids. And, some of them have, I think Stratford's at about 2,300. That's a lot of kids, even if it's just half you're bringing back, to have a whole new way of doing business and do it safely. And so the principals really felt like the best way to do this was to try to do some sort of a staggered or a hybrid model so that kids had an opportunity to come in. And so the physical building is going to look different now than it looked before. And so we just felt like the principals felt like to alleviate the anxiety of everybody, if we just took 4 days, because remember, Monday's a holiday. So we're talking about 4 days just to get everybody comfortable and model the appropriate behaviors and allow kids to ask questions in small groups and get accustomed to it. Then coming back the next week would be a lot smoother. And so when they recommended that to me, I thought it was a great idea. I mean, I know it's not really very popular with a lot of people, but our number one goal has to be health and safety alongside academic progress and emotional well-being. If we do this correctly, I mean, we know there's going to be outbreaks. We know people are going to contract COVID. And when that happens, we have a whole decision tree around how we manage that. But Caroline, that's like an awesome point. I have to write that down, because to the extent we do this correctly in week 1 will be the extent we stay in longer without having to shut parts and pieces down.
Absolutely.
Which we know is going to happen at some point.
Mm-hmm. Are you taking any other precautions to keep the teachers safe right now in their environment? Because we know, like you mentioned, a lot of them might be more susceptible to COVID, or they have someone who is susceptible to COVID in their household. So what kind of precautions are you guys taking for the teachers right now?
Well, one of the things that, and I mentioned earlier that Memorial Hermann Medical Group has helped, and they're fabulous, have really advised us on our health and safety protocols. And so on the Learn SBISD plan. So, there's really 3 things that the doctors will tell you, or really there's a couple of key things. I mean, there's a lot of different things we can do, but there are some key things we can do. And so one of them is going to be the mask wearing. And I know that's not popular. And it's hard. I don't like it either. And I forget, and I frequently go to walk into a campus just to see how things are going. And I accidentally leave the mask in the car. So it's just, we're going to have to get a habit going. But, it's mask wearing, it's hand washing and hand sanitizing. And to the extent that you can stay 3 feet or 6 feet apart, which is not always going to be possible in a comprehensive high school, then those are all things that you could do to keep each other safe. And so, we're going to have teachers do a weekly health screener. Kids will do a health screener on a daily basis. Actually, we developed an app, so that's really easy. Will be really easy for you guys to do. And so we're also taking, so we have our regular custodial staff, but we're also using an additional contracted service custodial staff to add custodians to the campus. And we're using our bus drivers who will not all be running routes, because we're going to be running half the routes. and they're going to become what we're going to call cleaning buddies. So you'll have like triple the number of people cleaning high touch surface areas. And so we're starting to implement that plan next week. And then for the teachers, we've tried to make sure when they come in that they go straight to their classroom. So we don't encourage them. We don't need them commingling. They've been great about not doing that, but just all that stuff, all those safety protocols. And the teachers, I say our teachers, they've been awesome. I mean, they've really, like, I know they were nervous, but they came back and they have just knocked it out of the park. They've been great.
I know any class that I've been a part of over these past few weeks, they have really just been doing the absolute most to make everyone feel included. And although this online stint may just be for this 2 weeks and part of next week, they have really just been trying their hardest to adapt and make it work. And I'm so appreciative. And I know all the students at Stratford are too.
Yeah.
Like the silver lining of all this is we took so many strides in online learning. Like, I feel like there's always been this like weird idle transition. Like we're doing some stuff online, like it's learning and all that, but then also we have paper. But I feel that this kind of like projected us into a whole different kind of learning.
It did for sure. Yeah. And you guys are going to have to do that when you go to college. I mean, when you go off to college, I'm sure you have friends that are there now. It's a hybrid of both. And so, I have always said when I became superintendent that we're doing our kids a disservice when we don't teach them to operate in both environments and be able to be fluid and move back and forth. And so there you go. We were forced to do it, and everybody's still alive to talk about it. And it's going, it's going as well as it can go.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what message would you like to specifically send to the students, faculty, and parents that are watching our video today?
That's a great question. So I guess the first thing I would say is that this hasn't been easy on anybody, and we acknowledge that. We also acknowledge that we're not perfect, and there's no easy answers to the situation we find ourselves in. And so no matter what you do, you have a group of people that don't agree. And so at some point, sometimes you just, as a leader, you have to make decisions that are in the best, what you believe are in the best interest of, first of all, kids and your staff and your families. And some people will not be happy about that, and some people will. So we always challenge, we've challenged our teachers, and they've risen to the challenge to find the opportunities and the silver linings and all the places where we can find positive. Because if we just dwell on the negative, we're going to be miserable. Because I don't think we're going to get out of this anytime soon.
Right.
And then the last thing I would say is, I would like for parents and families, first of all, to thank them for the grace that they've extended thus far, because our families have been fabulous. But just to continue to do that, because we're not through this yet. We're going to have bumpy roads in the fall. We're going to now add the flu and and everything else that comes along in the fall to it. So we're just going to have to hang on for the ride and hold hands and march together and try to understand that everybody's doing the best that they can. So that's really what I would say. And to please reach out to us if you have a question or a concern, because we're here. I think Spring Branch has handled it as best we can. We're not perfect, but I'm proud of our staff and our kids.
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah, it's hard to believe that right now we're like living through a piece of history, like something that like we'll literally be studying in textbooks later on.
Yeah.
That's what's going through right now. Yeah. We're very excited to like see all the things that you guys implement for this year, and thanks so much for talking with us again.
Yeah. You bet, you guys. This was the highlight of my day. Thank you very much. You guys have a great day. See y'all later.
Thank you.
Bye, Megan.